have better. What's best? Maybe not have better, I think.
Sure.
Yeah,
There's not too many people, yeah?
Sound very strange looking. Yeah.
I think we have to change a lot of this stuff. Yeah, maybe.
Not smooth.
Was it put everything in the middle.
Was the speaker to do and the speaker to the speaker to the
Right.
okay now?
That was better. That was better.
get a shed. Someone trash it the lecture. Someone trash it the
Good morning, everybody.
very not.
Yeah, what are we on? Channel 5, yeah?
Channel 5, yeah.
Good morning. Testing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
That's good.
Okay,
I think that's good.
that's okay.
Testing.
Testing. Yummy.
Testing the 2 truths for Arya
Sound okay.
truths.
Well, so and that double colonch. What is Sanje?
Jodang Soki Chonam La Janju Badu Dagni Gapchuchi Nagi Chunin Gipe Chokdam Ki Joram Panja Senge Dropa
Sanje
Jodang Soki Chonam La Janju Badu Dagni Gapchuchi Nagi Chunin Gipe Chokdam Ki Joram Panja Senge Dropa
Sanje
Sange Chodang Soki Chonam Janju Badu Dagni Gapsuchi Dagi Chunin Gibe Chokdam Ki Joram Panja Sange Dropa
Dayan Gade
Gate Paragat Parasum Gate Bodhisattva
Dayan
Gate Paragate
Parasum Gade
Bodhisattva
Dayan
Mayata Gate Paragate
Parasum Gade
Bodhisattva.
Ola so Semja Tamjega to the Tojalana Majeva Sanje Kumar and Boja Chineja Tobarcha. And the day Cheto and the Janjus and Belabjan switching the Nato Lango, now like Shingo, Shimbale Togo, Tobale Tojeshu Manowachi got the Council Power then. Geshe Bushiwa like it's a Juju and the Tesha to be in some chat.
And so we begin by setting our motivation. That motivation is to do whatever we possibly can to attain the peerless state of enlightenment in order to benefit all sentient beings. Knowing that in order to attain that state, I must perfect all the trainings on the Bodhisattva path. To perfect those trainings, I must in turn have a great understanding of what they are, and I must be able to gain that understanding by relying upon an unmistaken text or source. And thus it is with this in mind that I'm here this morning to hear a teaching from just such a source, being the King of Mind Training texts known as the Bodhisattva's Way of Life, composed by the great master Shantideva.
What is it? Namjudan and social set with Kumbasha and a rangi Tugin Nagala, Ngorangi Tinjaza, Lama Imbala, number Tapjala Tujimbo the Damba, and Damba to be on which set up.
And again, too, as we normally do, we begin by visualizing the merit field in the space in front, a merit field which consists of, in actual fact, our own root guru, but in the aspect of the greatly compassionate one and the one skillful in means, Shakyamuni Buddha.
That number to be on with it, and the castle and the Shaji Chani, yes, and Yapshagit and the 2 second number. Kula Chugu will make a torture so much. Mosomba and Tugin Nagal, and it's show you some such.
The figure of Shakyamuni Buddha has one face and 2 hands, the right hand in the earth-touching mudra, touching the ground, and the left hand in the meditative equipoise mudra, holding an alms bowl filled with nectar. The figure is dressed in the saffron robes of a monk. And we really feel that the Buddha is actually there in front of us.
And the Ranga Tagotoya, Rala, and that Tingi Jump, Marking a Simja Tamja Yosa, and that Simja Tamja to the Rangi Seti Pama, and it's saying Namia Pama, Dingama, Zibia, and a Toma Mavana, and a Tingi Jump, Marking a Simja Tamja, George Simja, the Maso, never you, some such.
And in the space all around us, we visualize all kinds, mother sentient beings. And we start with the parents of this life, and then to consider the parents of a previous life, of the life previous to that one, and previous to that one, going right back to beginningless time, and thereby encompassing all sentient beings without exception.
And Ranga Dunga Nangala said that Lama Tubia Ombudi and the Jivo Omgava Jamba Amo, Tuga Home, the Yigasum set up.
The figure in the space in front of the figure of Shakyamuni Buddha is marked by 3 syllables: the Om at the crown, the Ah at the throat, and the Hung at the heart center.
And Tuga Hole, we say Padomeva Turner, and Shingamja never. And Yishiba, and only the Java Chanta, Yishiba, the Lama Tubia Ombe, number Chanta, only Ongo, Chui Lama Chesna, Miku Weekend, the study compassion.
Light rays emanate from the Hung at the heart center, countless rays of light, going out into the pure realms, inviting back the wisdom beings and the empowering deities. The wisdom beings dissolve into the central figure, and the empowering deities confer the nectar of empowerment, some of which overflows at the crown, spontaneously producing the figure of Akshobhya.
What the Ranga doing a set of Lama Tubia Ombo de Chick Casora, Yishiba was shooting. Good job with the want to Kushansha with the Solomon, the Yishiba was shooting, Sanja Sumbakura into and Yeta was compassion. And it did the nigger and doing a sugar, Sanjeti, and a Juban because of the same jink, the tribute to not so much training. And it's because of the Casota Takaja. Human member George and Anya to Jeremy to Kasha ya part training. That's the come to Melba, not so much in by Insa, and the data to be to not so much training. Kasha part to Kasha to do what did it, chicken on shooting and some jig to Bemer to do things. What did you compassion?
So with the dissolving of the spirit, the wisdom beings into the central figure in the merit field, we kind of like make sure that we are visualizing the figure of Shakyamuni Buddha as a real, actual live being, not in terms of it being a statue or some other two-dimensional representation. And that scene around the Buddha is one of great kind of toing and froing, where emanations are going out, fulfilling the purpose of an enlightened being by ripening those minds which have not yet been ripened, and further ripening those which have been partially ripened, and then returning once their objective has been fulfilled. And so that is this busy thoroughfare effect that we are visualizing, with emanations of the Buddha going out and returning constantly.
다가는 신게 아니 된데가 산제대 당분의 산계 이제 많이 무슨 알아서 내실 내 당부가 얘기했지 아니 내 당부가 청와 군대 인데겠지 아니 랑게 아니 계획 신이라 때는다 지가서도 계획 신이게 나 때네 아니 지가서도 사주 람가는 이쪽에 산제 고바도 탑되겠지 나라서도 투게 나라서도 람라라 나라서도 고바서 산제다 인데겠지 대대지 고바시 예빠도 임바도 못 쳐봤잖아 고바시
And so we are visualizing this live figure of an enlightened being who has the enlightened qualities of body, speech, and mind, and of enlightened activity, and also, of course, we're aware that the Buddha has been very much beginning, like us, as a rank beginner. Under the influence of karma and mental afflictions, but having then, met with the spiritual friend and being able to proceed along the path, and that ultimately accomplishing the 5 paths and the 10 grounds of the Bodhisattva, and attaining full and complete enlightenment. And so that's the kind of nature of the figure that we are visualizing.
what the compassion, and the Ranga Tago, the Simja, the Datam, Randa Kokun, the Trinja, the what they were Miduba Tungachi, Rede, Tungaki Chichela, Chinan, Yuting.
And that when we visualize all the sentient beings all around us, we see what a quagmire of suffering they are in, moving from suffering one suffering only to encounter another, and then dealing with that only to encounter another suffering. This is the nature of the place that they are in.
Give it to me, and a caveat to me, and a nave to me, and Chive to me. Tarnish the Vengo was Seja Minimbe to me, Miduba Todo to me la soba. What that didn't get to get the Daki Prata, not taking it. To get the Daganata, to get to me sumum. What that to get some Lotan Koachi to me, and Jerasu la soba, Teta some Lotane, and the Talamasur Jake, Teta to make you that Java Church. That's right, Java Target compassion.
And that all of these beings are suffering, such a kind of a plethora of sufferings, being the suffering of birth, suffering of old age, suffering of sickness, the suffering of death, then the suffering of never being able to get what they want, and never being able to avoid what they don't want, the general sufferings of and the particular sufferings of cyclic existence. It just seems to be constant, and that they are indeed in that situation. We develop a tremendous sense of concern for those sentient beings undergoing that suffering. I want to take on a kind of a personal responsibility to free them from that suffering.
What is it? Rotaka, Simja, the Dewata, the Vejuda, and a Chimoro, Temba Shooter, Temba Short, Temba Target, Teda Chenova Lama to which singular Compassion, Teda Tunga, the Tunga, the Jana Chimoro, Tewa Juja, Tewa Short, and Teda Target, Teda Chenova Lama to which singular Compassion, and Teda Tunga, the water Mindana Chimoro, Minto, Juja, Minto, Short. Minto target Teda Lama to which singular what that did you want like nearly chat on the Java Madonna, Tamaba is nearly chat on the Daniel and Chimor, never Juja, never short, never target Teda Chenova Lama to which singular compassion.
And so we develop this strong desire, how wonderful it would be if all sentient beings had happiness and the causes of happiness. May this be the case. I will see to it that it is the case. Oh, Guru Deity, please bless me to make this so. And how wonderful it would be if all sentient beings were free from suffering and the cause of suffering. May this be the case. I will see to it that it is the case. Oh, Guru Deity, please bless me to make it so. And how wonderful if all sentient beings had the happiness that knows no suffering and the excellent bliss of liberation. May this be the case. I will see to it that it is. Oh, Guru Deity, please bless me to make this so. And in contemplating these immeasurable thoughts, of course, we realize that without the basis of equanimity, we are caught in a discriminating attitude, considering some as friend, some as enemy. And so we also have to make a strong supplication how wonderful it would be if all sentient beings could abide in equanimity, free from attachment and anger that hold some close and others distant. May this be the case. I will see to it that it is the case. Oh, Guru Deity, please bless me to make it so.
Okay, still walking. I didn't walking. Oh, sorry. Oh, yeah. Oh, the letter. And the letter will attend it. Takaja was Casore. Oh, the leg combat will attend it. And it take us over Lavatuba on the cooler to the rock to the number of says Jumba. We said also. Kabu share charge penne, Kabu share charge penne, and Casoda Takaja, Randa Tago, the subject Tamjal, Chibon, Marshman, and then told me the watch it like Cabatu at Semeshika Topakabala, but the joy to the Tibet, my chances was commercial.
And so as a result of these heartfelt supplications, then light rays, the 5 colored light rays, begin to descend from the heart center of the Guru Buddha in front of us. And through these descending light meditation. The lights enter into the crowns of myself and all other sentient beings all around us. And first of all, with the white light, the purifying light predominant, and eradicating all of the general negativities and the particular negativities to our being able to realize the four immeasurables directly.
What is it? Then you and so at the tenant and the water, the Castle attended to Michigan Tobacco, so at the tenant, and we said to a civil shoot our pen, and then to number 2 on the 2 Geneva Michigan Tobacco, which is around you like Gay, and Nuba Kabaji Joseph, Paja Kabaji Joseph. What did you
And like again, supplicating sincerely, again, this invokes the 5-colored nectar lights from the heart center of the Guru Buddha, this time with the yellow golden light predominant. And this entering into the crowns of myself and all the sentient beings all around us is able to endow us with the potential to really generate these four immeasurables as a direct experience.
Order compassion, order the chat. That the name by Insan, Ganja, Simja Tamjag, and that the Dunga to the Chava, Deva Tamja, the Deva, the Leju, you are the me by Insa, that in the Yongala, Rasanja, Goma Madonna Tamadua. Ruataka Dunga, the now Mississippi Ninja, Deva didn't do the Chambacha. That Dunga now that Deva didn't do the Chambacan, Tanguna, the Leg, Deva. Tubache다 and Dungesewaja Pachigachi, Simja Tamjashana, Simja Chiga Chetukumtua. That did a jet to be new by the Sula Josana and Simja the Tuja, Lala Ubas of Sanjava. Casa Kongi, Simja Kamdam, Chita was the king of Yovaja, and that Billy was chatting to her. She just simply got to the Majua meeting a chatting to her. That the day by Insa, what a Sanjay Goma Madonna coming to Tobachi, some compassion.
And so really this desire, strong, powerful desire that we have that all sentient beings should have happiness and the causes of happiness and be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. We realize how limited we are, you know, that we know that that focus on the happiness of sentient beings is the accumulation or cultivation of love. We know that the focus on relieving the suffering of all sentient beings is the focus on compassion. And who has these levels of love and compassion to really be effectively be able to benefit all sentient beings? It has to be the state of enlightenment, the Buddha. The one who has that understanding of the dispositions and the personalities and all of the ins and outs, really, of how best to benefit all sentient beings. And so this only kind of really strengthens my resolve to quickly attain that state as quickly as I possibly can, thereby generating the mind of enlightenment.
That is Sanjay Goba Tobaloco, Sanjay Gombasa, Jumela Jumame, Julatingo. That you guys are Juzo de Tapsini, Janjuga Semta, Tap Janjuga Semta, Shera Tombani Latene, and then Shera Tombani, Namle Latene, and Sanjay Gomba to Gugu Yutu, and a day Namle Tembe Shung, Takajaji, Shung de Takajaji, Quasore, Juju Shung the Tan, Ningi Samsa water, me. And of
course, it's all very well to have these great aspirations, these great desire, but to accomplish anything, we have to be able to establish its causes, to lay down the causes to lead to that result. And the two primary causes for the attainment of enlightenment are, on the method side, the mind of enlightenment and developing that. And on the wisdom side, it's the wisdom realizing emptiness or selflessness. And so it's this capacity to understand what these are, then to put them into practice, integrate them into every aspect of our lives is what really counts. And in order to be able to do that, we have to be able to understand how to go about it. What is the kind of basic information that we need? And this is where the Bodhisattva's way of life comes in. This is the text which demonstrates how to live a life according to a Bodhisattva. And so this is how I set my motivation now to listen to a brief explanation from this text today.
다 된대 인도 아니 랑게 지금 상부 중화인의 년바 중화인의 사나 존나 통나다 내다 근데 차바이나 장주가 셈께다 돈이 또 베셔라 계획이 아니 저 가서 줄라 배주 땅 투바 중화인바이나 아니 가서래다 그도 이내 아니 소소 미세데 돈다 템바 차대지 아니 산지가 살아 남녀도 녀도 줘야지 코안에 장정들 진짜 줘야겠다 거주 가서 거기에 좋은 것도 와 다디서 아니 된대가 용해겠다 남전 지금겠다 흉은나네 개부자부터 다 준주차대도 와 가서 로종고 흉을 때는 적고도 로종이 개부자부터 준주차대도 와 어디래
So it's really this capacity to take whatever happens, good, bad, or indifferent, as a complete like trigger for us to generate the causes to for the mind of enlightenment and the wisdom of emptiness. And that here that if we are able to do that, it makes our life meaningful, it brings us closer to enlightenment, and it makes the possibility of lower realms far more distant. And so a text that is able to, instruct us in just this is a really precious thing, and it's known as the king or the emperor of mind training texts, and that the Bodhisattva's way of life is just this text. Shoktan Gyatan Guju Tamba. 예, wogichiki somba. Domba tangrawala dawala ni.
다 간제 저 랑라 다 간제 랑라 너바 로다 저 편바 너바 대가 다 dom바다 잡았다 괜지 로다 랑라 편바 죽겠지 로다 랑게 삼라다 신바나 편바 지외 되다 소소 편거 입에 시험 먹어 봤잖아 너바 지외 소소 편배 주 너바 지외 랑게 다 가서 얘를 좋아하는 제 수배 냠 소바들라 가서 소바들라 숨용고도 소바데 아니 가두고나는 초래 식자 소바데 가두나는 초인데 초래 안디 디바인데 디데 다디는 소바들라 미라고 가서 열어서 소바들라 아니 동행당의 그 소바 뇌제를 지문nhập 소바 철랑게 제거 소바스는 소바 숨용고도 와서 다 뇌제를 지문nhập 소바스가 라라 뇌바기는 제를 용고도 와서 아니 디 뇌바기는데 랑게 소베 교차되기도 왔어 랑게 소베 교차다 랑게 소베 교차도 라라 편바차되기도 왔어 대바이자 아니 뇌바기는데 소소 삼로 땅시바이나 아니 뇌바기는데 아니 편배교 차되도 아니 디 아니 산제 고마 줄어 주고 요때 또 잡았다고 그랬어 또 개침부 차이도 가서 산제가 남라 저에게 남전 지금 이제 무슨 또 개침부 쓰고 다 뒤에서 근데 소바되게 게 계획신이 쓰고로 다 소바 라는 너바 지게 가서 다 간제 너바 전에 소소라 가서래 동해 다니는 거 쓰면 냠내게 아니 가서 튕겨 주근데 또 잡았다고 그래서 왔다 그자 또 잡았다고 하는 니체 아니 개바셔도 된도 와서 sab진이 거는 소리죠
And so the here we have been looking obviously at the chapter on patience, and we have been looking at really being able to see that the one who is in the role of harm or who harms us, to be able to see that as they're presenting us with a cause for benefit, that we can benefit, because if we're able to generate and maintain patience in those circumstances, it is of course of a great benefit. And therefore the objective is to transform our attitude towards those who would harm us. And that when we look into the different styles or different characteristics of patience, we have the patience of bearing of austerities. There's the line where it says, patience is the ultimate in austerities. The patience of accepting harm without reacting, and the patience of not returning harm for harm, and the patience of accepting all dharmas, and all of these are the different aspects of patience, and that here we, in whatever circumstance we find ourselves, we need to be able to transform what would otherwise be a harmful situation into that which is a cause for benefit. And that in doing so, then the one who would harm us is now viewed as a teacher, a spiritual friend, the one who actually shows us the path. And so this is the kind of like transformation of accepting the harm in order that it feeds our patience. And as such, they are benefiting us. They are showing us like a teacher. And so this outline is one of a series of 3, and this is the 3rd. And it's saying here then the view whereby we see the one as a teacher and the enemy here as a teacher. And this has 2 outlines. It's going to be dealt with with an extensive explanation and then a brief summary. And so here, of course, it's that to hold the view that the one who harms is like a teacher. Of course, you know, a teacher is always incredibly kind, even in their aspect. And so here it's that we are seeing the enemy or the one who harms as like an enemy, like a teacher. And it has the first of these, the extensive explanation, has 3 subheadings. And the first of these is that according to the texts, from the text itself, it says that sentient beings and the Buddhas are the same in terms of merit. And the second is establishing that point through reason. And thirdly is dispelling any objections to that. And so the first of these is that establishing that the Buddhas and the sentient beings are alike in terms of merit, as a field of merit, from the texts themselves. The first part of 112 is an actual quote, where it says, "Therefore the Mighty One has said that the field of sentient beings is similar to a Buddha field."
le ane sanje ke chu ane ke tu guresa sanje ke nyugo di ke tu guresa ke tu la sanje chomden denje ane kaba songa resa chu yang daba doy chu yang daba dibe doy nangdo ane di song yores dor song che
And so that the field of sentient beings is similar to a Buddha field is explained in that in terms in reliance upon sentient beings, we can generate merit. We need to rely on sentient beings, for example, to generate merit coming from our ethical conduct, from our generosity, from our patience, etc. Sentient beings are essential there, and that in that way they are a field of merit, and similar to the field of merit that is a Buddha. Again, from that we can generate the qualities of enlightenment both. And this has been outlined by Shakyamuni Buddha in the Dharma Sangita Sutra.
다른 시가 로아 가서 가담베 라마조 소에들 장주가 셈 쓰긴데 개발이나 아니 솔로마 디 사그래 소야 디 조그래 디과에 디 다그래 쓰긴데 장주가 셈데 셈자가 되는 개고로 셈제 매나 장주가 셈 가리키게 장주가 셈스 동에게 나대와라 니제게 안들레 미스베 잠바게 아니 데 동에 제와 대화될 때마다 예 지금 시간도 제투고 매버도 아니 수요 제투산에서 다 제투에다 산제 고마도 답도 자주 섬될 때는 경고도 근데 이번에서 전대게다 주송게 대배 산제 다다 산제 신바 마음바 산제와 건가 자주가 섬날 때는 경고도 이야 섬증을 들려도 저 섬증을 들릴 때는 용고도
And so this is quite clear that we can see how enlightenment itself is that which arises from, in part, the mind of enlightenment itself. The mind of enlightenment itself relies on the being able to generate the compassion for the suffering of sentient beings, and love, wanting to place all sentient beings in that happiness, and gaining that sense of personal conviction and personal aspiration to say, I will be the one. To remove all that suffering. I will be the one to place all sentient beings in all that happiness. And that is that determination then from that to attain enlightenment. That is the mind of enlightenment itself. And one can see in the generation of the mind of enlightenment that the sentient beings are indispensable. In fact, they're absolutely essential to being able to generate that level of compassion, that level of love. And that indeed, all the Buddhas of the three times of the past, the present, and those to come will go through that same process of needing to generate the mind of enlightenment. And that in order to generate that mind of enlightenment, they will have to rely on the kindness of sentient beings.
두바사게 좀 되대 남게 아니 깨바데 깨바도 딱지 전도 다 패드 가리 벌서 다 자주 그 sem대 팽게 도서 다 자주 sem대 sem절에 되는 용되기도 로 자주 그 sem대 sem절 용되기도 아니 자주 그 sem대 배 돔첨부 시제다 냠내 그 돔첨부 시우지 자주 그 sem 냠내 제발할 때는 나 디과 상에 셔바죠 자주 그 sem 냠슬랑 다가랑 게 디과 다 주고 요래 자주 그 sem 냠슬랑 다가랑 게 손놈 사줘 가 손놈 사기에서 셔바지 제거요 말 자주 그 sem 고바다가 자주 sem 냠내 제와다가 손놈 사줘 것도 와 디과 다 손놈 사我大反正 아니 초조주야 자가 초조가 지금 셔바지 뭐 자주 sem 고바다가 그 초조주 정도도是吧 디과야 디기다 그래서 초야 디기 조 로가자데 오다 소나마야 디기사스 다가란게 아니 디과 다주야 소놈 사주야 어느 초조주야 그거 용어도 봐 저도 되시는 소리 좋아 디가리도 저 심지가 들려 되는 용어 되기도 봐 심지면은 믿어
And so the Buddha has, in our era, Shakyamuni Buddha has from eon to eon to eon, generated.
Buddha said, Sangye Chomde de Chugolo Koyamada, Loju on the Juba Sangye Chomde de Loni Donga. That Sangye Namki said, Sangye Jangle, Deva Sangye Jangle Deva. And the Keba Deva on the Javana Tanda Sangye Shi Loju Tony Sangye Shiba Chati Yorba. 아니 뭐 다가자 산제 장래도 산제 강가게 개만의 개발받아 잡아줘도 다 대니 편바서 다 자주가 삼냐면 되게 변게 도스다. 그러와 뒤에 셔바지 편도 뭐도 다 매바치 다 다가란 게 편도용. 대니 편바 6. 그러고
And so all the Buddhas of the 3 times, all the Buddhas whenever will have come to that conclusion based on their own experience, that the mind of enlightenment is that which is most beneficial, and that they also will kind of point out that it is on the basis of the kindness of sentient beings only that we can generate such a mind and to keep it going. And so it's kind of like really to kind of like summarize all of practice into its quintessence is all there in the generation of and the maintaining of and the integrating of that mind of enlightenment into every aspect of our lives. You know, we can talk about how the necessity of purifying our negativities. Well, if you maintain the mind of enlightenment as your motivation and follow through with actions based on that, then you are purifying all that is necessary. We can talk about the accumulation of merit, the accumulation of merit. Again, you know, what do we need to do in order to do that? You need to just concentrate on motivating through the mind of enlightenment and then following through in your actions based on that mind of enlightenment motivation. That is adequate to accumulate what are called, you know, the 2 accumulations of merit and wisdom and so on. And that here, this is all that needs to be done if you want to summarize everything into a quintessential practice. And so the Buddhists have pointed this out, that it is true, only through the kindness of sentient beings that we can generate that mind of enlightenment. Without sentient beings, that is not possible.
그러다 다가리시 배는 거죠. 지바땅와이네. 배나 dollar 찍 셔바치레 지바땅와이네. 배나 지바땅한테 어다 저 소소 저 가서 뒤쪽으로 샤서 지바땅하네. 어그 다지 거저 패바서로 좀 더 개용고 말바 다 봐줘도 팽거리 야버리다 시고 솔럼 사셔 개면도 다 개와치마 아니 지금 사다 미 고마 토바쇼 아니 선 꾸노 디케는 지바땅나 사다 미 고마 귤조도 아니 전화 찍어지잖아요. 어다 사다 미전에 코아래 저 타바 토베 귤을 좋아쇼스타는 타베 귤조도 다른 셈제 탐제도 산제 고마 토바쇼 디저도 아니 지바땅이 세도 셈제 탐제도 산제 고마 토베 귤을 좋아되고 다가 꾸노 지다서 꾸노디 셈제 탐제도 산제 고마 치도 아니 산제 고마데다 셈제니게 아니 셈제니게 안다 신켜봤자 딜레텔에 용되기도 아니 그 산제 귤을 좋아되지 졸라 찍고 찍잖아 와 꾸노 거제 켜봐야 졸라 찍으면 되게 요마데 꾸노 켜단게 아니 셈제 탐제 산제 고마서도 산제 귤을 좋아돼 왔다 된데 용데 그 가릴 때는 용거서 조 셈제게 다가자 지금 가서래 신당 아니 산제게 신데 켜봐서 뒤니라 되는 용되기도 와 제가 소소 찍고 지장래 우리 찍고 지장래
And so here you have $1, say, to give, and you want to practice generosity. And so you have you see a poor person and you give them the $1 without any particular thought in mind, and that you know, of course, that may benefit that person, but it is limited to the value of that $1. There's nothing else involved. Now you could have a motivation when giving that $1, a motivation to attain a precious human rebirth of a celestial being or a human being, and that action then will create the cause for that result. You may actually expand on that and give the same $1 with the motivation to attain liberation from cyclic existence altogether, having recognized its suffering nature and wanting to get out of it. And so that act of generosity will create a cause for that result. But ultimately, you can actually give that same $1, same value, with the motivation to attain enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings, and thereby you are creating a cause for enlightenment itself. And that is the most valuable dollar that you can give, even though it's the same value monetary in a monetary sense as just giving it without any particular motivation. And so you can see here, we want to be able to then understand that this opportunity to be able to give something like $1 with motivation that is the mind of enlightenment motivation renders that person to whom I am giving as an extraordinary basis or extraordinary field of merit, because they have played their part in there. And again, it's like that, you know, they are an extraordinary field of merit, as is the Buddha an extraordinary field of merit, and they're similar in that sense. Because without sentient beings, we don't have the other part of that action, you know, to be able to give to in terms of generating the kind of merit that is necessary to attain enlightenment.
로당에 가진 러에들의 말아서 녀모 생에데 말아서 녀모게 가서다 주숨라 되는 요거도 녀모 바자 요바 아니 데 깨다 채와 아니 데네 랑게 추다 미토바 삼로다는 녀모 기그스라임바 다 녀모 바자 요바체 깨 채바 이나야 랑게 추다 tum바 삼로다는 아니 녀모 기그모다 녀모 마게 간라 아니 가서래 다 간자제 녀모한테 타바다 탐색집에 객지기도 왔다. 랑게 추다 두바다 삼았다이나 디 바샤다 께 여바이네 디 녀모 께 마도 바체네 디게 산제 타바 탐색 객 맞아 봤잖아. 튕겨도 줘야지 제시도와. 와다 디가자 추다 두바 삼았다 두바이나 추다 수바 삼았다 두바나다 셈젠데 신케바치바 이바 셰베토네 아니 산제 유튜브에 여바지 유튜브에 여바다 랑게 렌토 바체바이나 아니 추다 두바 삼았다 와와 추다 수바 삼았다 와와 와다 디데지 레랑 알아 저거 내 주디 신바체 셰베토네 아니 디 렌토 바치고 우도
And so, you know, it's often the case, of course, where I've spoken many times before about how mental affliction is generated. You know, they have these three aspects of it, that you have the imprints for those mental afflictions on your mind stream. That's a given. Then you meet with the conditions that might give rise to that mental affliction. And then the clinger is really, the clincher is really when you react to those conditions with the incorrect thinking. And so you kind of basically open the door for mental affliction to take over. So in a situation where, you know, you have still the imprints on your mind, you still meet with the conducive conditions for mental affliction. But if you can address the incorrect thinking and overcome that and really start to respond with correct logic and correct thinking, then that changes the game completely. Then one isn't, you know, that mental affliction does not become an obstacle to your attaining liberation or the omniscient state of enlightenment. And so one can actually turn that situation into one's own advantage, where it becomes a conducive condition for the generation of merit and the causes for enlightenment. And so this places then one's own thinking at the very apex of what we should be doing. This correcting one's thinking and approaching situations with correct thinking is really vital, absolutely vital. And this then, correct thinking is to be able to see all sentient beings as this extraordinary field of merit, and that they are, you know, understanding that reality and responding to sentient beings in that way is going to be of great benefit to us.
다 수다 tumba 삼로 땅 시다 마싱스 가르라고 요랬으나 삼로 땅다데 녀모께 귤라 조고도나 수다 삼로 땅 미심바 차버려. 녀모께베 귤라 마녀 이제 녀모 양른데 땅게 도나 그 삼로 땅다 수다 투바 차대요. 수다 투바 투다 마든 세죠마. 삼로 땅다데 녀모 뭐서마 귤은 녀모께 귤라 조고도나 그 삼로 수다 투바 마다래. 뭐서 균은 녀모 장른다 른다 따는 매버서에 귤라 조고도나 그 삼로 땅다데 수다 투바래.
And so then what is this kind of correct thinking that we are referring to? Well, it's really this it's kind of consecutive thoughts that come together either to facilitate the arisal of a mental affliction, and thereby that would become incorrect thinking. And then the thoughts that are consecutive that distance the possibility of the mental affliction arising, and that then is considered as correct thinking. And so this is the difference between both of those.
我记得sometimes我记得当官north个多我对吧都门都我对吧有吧有吧去的对吧我对吧没吧有了去的没对吧等着说的这差等着这去的对嘛就现在아니我说녀모 게 바자 쇼 전부 여긴 아니 가사데 아니 가사데 코유 녀모 코유 시 전부 여 되게 아니 랑게 삼로 단다데 나 되바 도 먼저 대가라서 나라서 탐해와 좀 받체 안 탐해와 디 토네 나 되바 여 마이 갈잖아 아니 녀모 거 돌아 줘야면도 녀모 다 장르다 다또 가보지 그래 가보지 나라서 냠는 것도 내 삼로 단다 뭐 가보지 다디 많이 받잖아 나 되바 여다 매디 개체 뭐 맞지 뭐를 내 주투바데 레토 레모도 딱지지 좀 생각도 나 삼로 단다 디 잡는 거 참아도 뭐도 삼로 단다 what let's say any more you can net on any winner done so any jail winner ratio on the Jumsen toy on what on the any Deva Yoba Sotona did Deva Yoba winner the chapter. Shamba Deva Yo said the Yomo was Shawan, Deva Yoma said the Sugar only Mambo Yon de Dua. What that is a deep Tamba Mano at Jedi catching about the Dua.
And so what really, this sounds, something that is plausible and logical for us to be able to apply correct thinking. But of course, we're so often tripped up by simply, either, chasing after what we desire or trying to avoid what we don't desire. And this whole how do you say, the whole kind of line of dodgy reasoning that can ensue thereafter to back up what we want and to back up us, trying to avoid what we don't want. And this then is something that is kind of very difficult to distance ourselves from the effects of mental affliction, from the control of mental affliction, with that sort of kind of thinking, because you have this already very powerful imprints on the mind, ready to respond when they meet with what are known as the kind of like the conducive conditions for the promotion of mental affliction. And so the kind of environment for mental affliction, when we find ourselves there and we have that imprint on the mind, and then we try to insert this kind of like I want, I don't want into that equation, the result is often that we're just controlled, overcome by mental affliction, and then we've lost that particular situation. And so it's kind of becomes hard to distance ourselves, and we get caught up, tangled up in the mental affliction itself. So kind of like really have to rely on valid reason and to place more importance, more value on valid reasoning, to ask the question with regard to the desire that's arising, Is it a valid desire? And is there something deeper and more valuable that can be desired by responding in a different way? And to kind of like settle on the kind of more long distance, unmistaken choice of the non-afflicted pursuit of a more lofty desire.
소소가 되봐도 먼저 대가라 차 마셔 좀 생각하네 한 세죄네 삼로탄 두근지 제마도 와이나 노래 내가 빼먹고 있고도 아니 뒤에 대화 두고대 아니 대회 주좀 마셔 밑에 동네 쪽빵 마셔도 가르치는 연구 열었으나 아니 거기 가서래 다 가자 뭐유게 내주 두번 좀 하도 봐자 tel라때는 영어 되기도 와 다들 임바 인자 전에 임바에서 딱 뭐유게 내주 두번도 추다 두번 삼로 다 신경지 연구도 하던가 되봐도 대점을 참 마셔 봐자데 좀 생겼더네 제수 장대겠지 와다 내주 중앙 임바이나 되네 용해 요발 가서 미르와 미 때는 마요나 아니 탑시 매버려 가서 미싱한테 남주셔 미 누가做的 남주 들어와 다 남주 뒤 아니 배주 땅전에 다 배주 땅 도와이나 어다 가자 지가서데 최도 도바 삼로 당도 녀모 고가운데 아니 동해 고한테 가한 것도 와 동해 용해도 녀모 뭐 맞았으나 동해 빵도고 말해 동해도 녀모라 때는 연구들 녀모스 께 차와처럼 장 규정에 강사됐다 기부 매바 차고 봐도 뭐 쳐봤지고 그도 와 녀모 께서는 최 켈레나다 말레나다 소이바니 기부요 말해 와 기부요 말해 그다 줘버려 다 되네 얘도 다 녀모 그때 뭐서 가서데 동해게 다 되게 대형 거 이거데 아니 녀모게 아니 가서데 다 가서도 기업한테 매워서야 아니 사도 가서 기업한테 그래 기업도 되게 조단도 약고 마시 봐이나 아니 되게 사이콜로지가 조단도 약고 심봐이나 아니 그 녀모도 숙청도 총도 다네 매워서 될 때는 아니 라나 거에 되게도 문에 용도로 와 당고 간가 배조 제도 되게 쳐도 지금 열어 봐 때도 되게 다 그래서 온 것도서는 아니 녀모인데 나 이제 칼 제마도 봐도 때도 되겠어 용해 걸어 요마로 다 근데 디아다 거저 녀모세데 추다 미도 바상로 당도 녀모 경어데 아니 추다 도 바상로 근데 당도 대 당다 신고도 어디래
So we have to be able to, in a way, insert our valid reasoning within this paradigm of I want, I don't want, I like, I don't like, and to kind of really question that sort of shallow choice making with a more deeper, more subtle sense of reasoning, and that in this way we will be able to avoid making a lot of very silly mistakes. And that here, you know, when we talk about, you know, happiness, we of course can settle on the fact of the matter that we need to create the causes for that happiness. When we talk about avoiding suffering, we need to abandon the causes for that suffering. And so this accords with actuality. This is something that we can, as it were, embrace because it seems reasonable to us. It accords with actuality. And so this is where how we must proceed to ask ourselves the question, am I thinking in harmony with reality? Am I addressing the actuality of this situation at all times? And so now what is to our advantage here is that the defining characteristics of a human being is that we are meant to be intelligent, and that we have this capacity to reason. And this is something that we should really kind of rejoice and promote. That it's something that is absolutely, we should trust in our intelligence, and we can only trust in our intelligence by being able to use it correctly. You know, there is the capacity there, and I think we can all agree that there is the capacity there through our use of intelligence and reasoning to close the door to mental affliction, and thereby close the door to suffering. And once we can accept that if we can stop mental affliction, then that is going to stop suffering. That surely is a great inducement to be able to rely on our own reasoning coming from our human intelligence. And thereby, you know, we can see that, you know, that when a mental affliction has arisen, then we can see that whether we are a Dharma practitioner or a non-Dharma practitioner or whoever it is, when the mind is afflicted in that way, there is no possibility of happiness. There's no sense of well-being there. This is apparent, and that's something that then we should respond to by saying that if a mental affliction has arisen or is in danger of arising, that we do whatever we can to abandon mental affliction, to turn back that way of thinking. And so it's just basic psychology, you know, that if we want happiness, we have to be able to recognize what is the thinking that is conducive to generating that happiness, and what is the kind of thinking that is not conducive to generating that happiness. This is just basic psychology. And after all, you know, what are we, the name of the game here is that we want happiness and we don't want suffering. And so if we can identify, therefore, that mental affliction has nothing to do with happiness, there's no place in generating happiness and can only lead to suffering. And that also that mental affliction is the result of incorrect thinking, incorrect logic. And then we must ask the question, then how do I promote correct thinking? Because correct thinking will, on the one hand, avoid that mental affliction, and then it will actually promote the happiness that I so desperately want.
캡산 of the land to go. That never gave a tiller, then run and to the Salomata, that did never get so the dilatant and Honrosa, Nyomong, Tungela Java, Yimba, and could never chick mare, and rangaton like Jabjo and never eat a chadigua. Mutuni to me, Juch to take it. That could never give it, never gave a dilatant and a cook up some killing it. Sangegi Jujo to Edge, Kebe Lingidua. That is Namjula Tena Yongogua. Namjula Tena.
So you have a particular instance, therefore, of the one who is there in front of you harming. And so, on the one hand, of course, that harm is real. It may hurt. But if we are able to respond in that situation with patience in the face of that harm, and that one who is harming, then it's already a very, very beneficial situation for us. And that we have kind of like really gained the maximum out of a situation. If we choose to respond to the harm with mental affliction, that we want to oppose that, then not only are we not doing anything to assuage the harm that we are feeling, but we are also laying down, because of the mental capacity, mental affliction capacity of that thinking, we've laid down the causes already on our mind stream for the continuation of such harm into the future. So it's two harms there. And so we can see how that does not accord with any kind of a logical reality. And so it's here when we are able to, really accept the harm, respond with patience, see the benefit of the situation, we have laid down the cause for enlightenment itself. Now, that is the work of the human intelligence. This is what allows us to be able to do this.
다가제 너바 소바 검세도 모두 놀디요 말도 소바 검세 오다디 가리체데 제조 돈나 세나 가리 디게제 말에 거치 탑시 돈나 죄 딘데바께 마투바 소에 돈나 탑시 가리 요바 있네 파조달 너바 매베 돈나 탑시 가리 제네 제 다다데 소바 공부를 했을 너바께 받을 때는 소소 셈 마투바 쳔 시델 네트워크 제 시델 네트워크 맞아 디르게 아니 디 톤에 아니 타바다 탐제 김배주 쇠바 쓰긴데 다디 렌토바 지구를 쓰고 여름만도 양코 세나 tum나 가르치나 제 켄데로 삼로 가야 매거는 디스고요 말다가 딜레 때네 케베지 레다 삼로단 거도
And so again, it must not be mistaken here to kind of like point out that the practice of patience does not follow that we have to be some sort of punching bag, or that we have to just not react in some way. That patience is all about an internal activity. We are, patience is the mind which is in no way disturbed, but it in no way restricts us from avoiding harm where we can, and of responding to harm where we can't avoid it in the way that we can mitigate that harm and bring about a beneficial situation. And that as long as we're not allowing the mind in any way to be upset or disturbed, because we're actually laying down the causes for the liberation and the omniscient state of enlightenment. So patience is not a case of no thinking, of just staying still and inactive. Actually, it's quite the opposite, that we are very active in maintaining a peace of mind and our well-being in the face of what otherwise would be a very disturbing situation. But we are also primed to respond with action where necessary.
라신 니가를 캡상 치슈도 가도 까뚜이네 24 hours 7 day 됐던 거요. 디 구급스는 캡상 치슈도 가리에서는 오다 수박검 투에 이바이자 수배냠을 제도 어때?
And so patience practice falls into the general behavior of a bodhisattva practicing the bodhisattva's way of life. And that means that 24/7, they are constantly aware of being able to take the greatest benefit, the greatest profit out of every mental profit out of every possible situation. So whatever the situation is, they are capable of taking the very best out of that situation.
그래서 너도 랍치 계좌와 미세치 계좌 말아. 미세치면서 삼로 땅에 많아 권내주 또 로가래. 되게 계좌 말고 사람들 사람. 제 랜드를 랄리 되고 레다 릭트메 귤레 릭트메 되고 연구되고 무인이 저 대다 투바 인바이다. 아니 대다 투메 돈에 아니 소소 규사다 다 가서 대다 투메 돈에 아니 소소게 디기 규투나 삼땅으로 와.
And so this is not, we're not talking in the context of a one life theory here. We're talking about from lifetime to lifetime to lifetime. And that this requires it to be viewed in the context of the law of cause and effect, where causes proceed according to the results that are in harmony with those causes. And that the causes of happiness are those that are beneficial to sentient beings. And so this is how the framework around which this theory is built.
다들 이마자 되게 라이들 왔다 가자 너바 계겐데 아니 소바 거메라 삼탕도 돌았을 때 당도 봐이나 아니 계획 신차도 산제의 신 산제 주변 신 개발체 자되기도 와 근데 이마자 아니 가서 최양답에 돌았다 들려서 샘제의 신네 산제의 신데 샘제의 신데 로다 샘제의 신네 산제의 신대 신대 산제의 신대래 아니 신대래 가는 산제의 최남 아니 토본 그래서 토바 주대 근데 이마 인상 로아 주대 근데 로바 두바 미래와 다 근데 이마 인상 아니 저게 디 아니 가서래 디 고급도 심토가 지고 그래서 로바 두바 미익소 다 딜레 때는 그 신개발체들 그 산지 유튜브에 요바티 안디 마투바체는 코베 유튜브에 모두는 동네 요 유튜브에다 주 로바 두주 요 말다스 미익소 셰송소스 어디스
And so then, continuing on from the Dharma Sangita Sutra, it says, the field of sentient beings is a Buddha field, because it is from that Buddha field that the qualities of Buddha are attained. Hence, in that field, it is incorrect to practice in a mistaken way. And of course, that mistaken way is, again, completely aligned with our thinking. If we are thinking in a mistaken way, then we will, we will react incorrectly rather than respond skillfully. And so we need to be able to understand that in a correct way, we are aware that there are certain causes that lead to happiness, which we are wanting to accumulate, and certain causes that lead to suffering that we must abandon.
다 간제 저거 된데 이마 인상 아니 소소게 다 저거 소리 저기 가서래 산제 유튜브 요바들 디마주바 젠젠에 아니 저기 가서 코웨 유튜브사 차바이나 다 소소 추다 비디오 삼로당에 차대도가 된데 이마자 추다도 삼로당 고조가 돼. 다 니바 대 리그베 주바데스 다 롱게 주바자 리그베 주바네 산제다 심젤라 대비해서 다 산제다 로다 산제다 심젤라서 대비 되자 타도 다 소소그 되자 타도데 심제 탐제도 산제 고마도에 디마이다 타도 어서 톱당 로다 산제다 심젤라 대비 되자 타도 토바 당스 되자 타도 봐도 톱그래 토바 니가라 대비해서 산제 로다 니가라 대비해서 아니 대가서데 산제 토바 숭바 그래서 돌레미 잡았다 그자저 로다 산제다 심제 니가라 되네 아니 산제 고마 톱고도 와서 근데 인자 되니 로다 직 산제라 다 잡서죠 아니 심제라 그 개체모 맞지와 근데 직 도래 개 요마스 니가 냠을랑고 그랬어 돌레 미릭소 어떻게
And so the correct thinking in this context then is that we're not just laying down, acting or reacting to harm, for example, in laying down the causes simply to remain in cyclic existence, but rather that our thinking is in harmony with our objective to attain enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings, and therefore we accept harm by abiding in patience. The second of the subheadings that were discussed, the first there was dealing with this point through what it said in the texts, and now it's looking at it in terms of establishing it through reasoning itself. And this has two subheadings as well. And the first is that it's saying that through faith in the Buddha and sentient beings, one can attain the ultimate object of desire. And secondly, that through faith in both, they are equal in their capacity to attain enlightenment, and that you should not drop one for the other. In other words, you shouldn't simply go for refuge to one and then to consider the other without any importance.
다가 산제 고마 토발라 아니 디니 니가라 때네 탑고도 셈제다 산제 니가라 때네 탑고도 아니 디니 니가라 때네 탑고바 간실라 산제데 개쳐보지 셈제데 아니 개쳐보 맞지바 쳐바이나 아니 다 지금은 도스 그 니가라 산제데 토발라 개쳐보지 맞지 셈제데 개쳐보지 맞지 니가 개쳐보 직샤 직래 개면도 직샤 직래바이나 산제 토에 거라면 누가 산제 개첨부 세와이네 심제라 남매 당와이나 산제 토예면 누가 토배면 누가 다 된자야 심제 개첨부 세야 산제 개첨부 맞네 토배면 누가 다 되니 니가 고바 가실라 지 개첨부 지 개첨부 맞지바데 지금은 도스다 그 좀자 삼로 당라 니가 개첨부 차대샤 소로 돌래 지래 개면 니가 랭고도 소
And so this capacity that we have to attain enlightenment, we do so in reliance on both sentient beings and the Buddhas. And that this is very important point to realize, that if we consider one to be extremely important but place no importance on the other, then we're going to fail in our endeavor. That we need both in order to be able to attain enlightenment, and we need the correct attitude towards both in order to be able to fulfill our goal of attaining enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings. If you leave one aspect out, then you are incapable of achieving that goal.
다 되대로 와다 저기 잔주 세배 냠내 제와이나 가바 대바네 가바 내바네 셈데 디기 전에 두고 열와 더 삼로다다 먼저 지게 나로라 미망보자다 지가서데 론리 다 데데 강에 망보주 요되기도 와 소소메도 나서 삼로다한테 소소메도 샤바디 게치 뭐마지 아니 지발에 또 소소 지 마가와 지거든 셈마기바 전대도 다 마가와 지발에 되는 거는 소바꾸메 국가도 삼선 마가와 제데 셈제부를 차 되기로 와 이 삼로 땅 마도에 가르쳐 버렸으나 잔주 생고 냠내데 매바데 자로 쇠배 냠내데 매바데 자로 다 잔주가 생고 냠내 자원도 아니 가서다 제소 다 가서 제소 파제 두고 냠내려고 된들라도 아니 저거 진바다 최정다 아니 쇠바다 다 가서다 전주다 삼대다 셔라 되게 나온데 아니 지금 너바 지금지 때문에 너바 지금데 소소라 패 도고도다 삼삼다나 디다 지 계제 셔나 마시나 계제마 셈지나 디가라 산제 고마돌라 편토고도 삼마다데 디통오드네 셈기부 정거로 와 셈기부 정거로 와 논리 용해 거라면도 와.
So it's very clear that, you know, this, the kind of like the very clear absence of this sort of more expansive thinking related to the mind of enlightenment has in the West led to kind of an epidemic of loneliness, where people are very much kind of obsessed with just I haven't got this, and I you know, I'm unhappy in this case, and that there's no thought to others or including others in their thinking, and that they're kind of like really confused about how unhappy they are, and that they can find no satisfaction. And that you know, it's kind of like really important when they do not consider others as important enough even to think about, and that you know, that it breeds kind of a dislike around you, and then a dislike for your own situation, and that you know, that when you have you know, that the idea of the objective of enlightenment and the path that leads to that, you know, you realize that both Buddhas and sentient beings are both and equally important in the attainment of that ideal, and you cannot drop one for the other or consider one to be very important and the other not. And so it's kind of like very, very important to realize that, and that that goes like when you are engaged in the path to enlightenment, and thereby trying to generate not only generate the mind of enlightenment, but integrate the 6 perfections as the practice of that motivation. So you're in trying to engage in generosity, perfecting ethics, perfecting patience, enthusiastic effort, meditative concentration, wisdom, it's clear that others are essential in one's any progress one makes in those perfections. And so it changes one's whole attitude initially to sentient beings, so that even those who harm, you can see how that can be incredibly beneficial in the context of your 6 perfections, particularly patience. And that and therefore, you know, somehow deep in your mind there is this reservoir of happiness, of contentment, because you hold all other sentient beings so precious.
是，这个说的我心嘛些，这个有没有心情所谓的真情不是啊？3路就考个有吧？伊呢，这个心大你不吃个了，心就不是说告诉这个说的，说这个农历个3路都用过嘛是吧？用到用过嘛是吧？他用过嘛是吧？看看心也不是吃的，刚刚说偏头有吧说了去，不然你这个这个说了3节过嘛就不了偏头多3路刚好的。 샤바로바 지금 되게 아니 그 통계 잘 편도도 삼로다 편도고서 처한데 샘 나로를 시대 열봐 남자 요마로 anxiety 스크립트 용해 거라 요마로
And so that's you know, it's not a question of who we know or who we don't know, who we recognize and who we don't recognize. That the sentient beings are greatly kind. Why? Because they are sentient beings. That's all that they need to qualify as greatly kind in our view, in our thinking. And this changes the whole relationship we have with the world. And that it doesn't matter who we meet, we see them as kind. And in that kind of world, there is no place for a mind like loneliness. It can't be. And so it's not only those who benefit us, but even those who harm us are greatly kind, because we're living in that context of cultivating patience. And they are essential to our being able to perfect that patience. And so it's kind of like sentient beings then are like this base, this kind of field in which we can create all the causes we need to attain enlightenment.
지다디 장주 선배 냠래 지에게 흉지르데 당하라도 저기 대과 침비 출了몇번 요게 아니 저기 상계 좀제 다 심제 탐제기도 상계 공부 토백이 다 장주 선배가 줘발라 먼저 몇번 요게 진짜 다 딘줄라 강투도기 디전 아니 랑게 니리 미지 나로 봐 자도 봐 지에게 쳐버려 다잘 봐도나 아니 샤자 팽거 말봐 다 소소 미지 나로 자도 전에 안 되게 강투도 자도 봐 지에게 쳐버려 디 자도나 아니 저기 산제 고마디 개첨버리다 이내 소소 미지 나로라 아니 저기 서바도 구양다 깁다 저거로 와 아니 나 세게 또 숙청다 나 세게 그 저기 셴 저기 진라때는 초구도면도 셴매나 나도 가야 제모다 어저 배나 쇼가 야랑만에 마 많이 받아 알리 탐색점마 파쇼 산제 고마 파쇼 쇼야 야랑만에 마 많이 받아 사예 통예 고예 대사 강가 심정 줄라 때는 연구도 와 롭종 딱 강가 심정 줄라 때는 나랑도 류네 중앙 강가 라베시다 유에도 가야면도 와 소소를 팬도에 쳐면도 와 나랑도 팬도에 수고를 고예 강가 가리 거기 요번다 사예 통예 강가 심정 가셔 쏘다 심정 가셔 깔래 점이 연구도 와 이거 가서 아니 디 니마지 라디 잠로다 아니 되는 미지지 되네 다 사람들 처럼 삼로다다 답에 코라 대바 깔래 배 미지지 쳐버려도 대가 삼로다나 배다 산제 고마 돌아다 시에 먹어 버려
So the question is really not simply understanding this or even accepting this, but in our, aspirations to engage in the Mahayana path, or our aspirations to kind of like to benefit all sentient beings, that's good. But we need to actually see the results of this in our actions, in our behaviors. And so it's a question of being able to do the best we can to apply what it says here in these teachings into our lives, to integrate into our lives, into our behavior, into our actions, and in every action. And that it's a question of also really seeing how, you know, we can proceed through life with a much more open, light view, how we are engaged, how, you know, in a life where loneliness plays no part, because we're not obsessed with the self of why kind of a situation is, but rather we are seeing, you know, sentient beings as absolutely vital and important in our lives, and that to understand, if there were no sentient beings, then we couldn't proceed at all. You know, that let's look at it from a purely practical point of view and forget about liberation and the omniscient state of enlightenment. Even just to exist and to survive in life, we are totally dependent upon the kindness of other sentient beings. And that means, like, from the moment we get up in the morning till the time we go to bed at night, we are reliant upon sentient beings for everything that we can enjoy. Even to function, you know, we need to rely on sentient beings who dedicate their lives so that we can live in the comfort that we do, and sentient beings who expend all their energy to ensure that we can enjoy, sentient beings who dedicate all their time and effort so that we can enjoy what we enjoy. And this is just in normal, mundane sense in the life that we are leading. And that, you know, and if we look at it from our side, like, what we produce is only classified as waste. It's what we flush and get rid of. That here, you know, we kind of like, the sentient beings, then we should realize that from life to life, then, that sentient beings are, even in the mundane sense, incredibly kind in allowing us to flourish, even like this, in this physical sense. And then how much more kind when we're on the path to liberation and the omniscient state of enlightenment. They are allowing us, they are essential to our being able to accumulate the causes to attain those lofty states.
对不对？这个也让我说，这个咱们现在当地基的给咱们国写个的，现在个真全部一般就我说我这呢，俺的我说你的米子那了，俺们来讲的装马多吧呢，咱们现在是大概吃咱们来，给朋友嘛的，现在真全部一般，俺的给全部一般，上了当头，俺的了朋友主要落起来吧呢，俺的现在，但现在是的是好要的，
Xing Day.
是的 ，all peace。
Honestly. And so, yes, here, you know, we can talk about the kindness of sentient beings in this life and so on, and that you know, we have these wonderful aspirations like for world peace. But if we do not see how sentient beings are incredibly kind in this life, then that talk of world peace is just that. It's just paying lip service to that ideal. And that the basis for world peace is to be able to consider all sentient beings as not only precious, but incredibly kind. And that from our individual sense is the foundation on which we can build world peace.
刚刚介绍，本来我说这个本来我说大家这个恰恰呢，大家张马说跟哈拉说跟，俺的行吧，大家今个我看不康巴说跟，没得说刚刚了，刚刚了点呢，本来张马说跟点呢，我这张马就可以张马就带上来个多啊，俺的没得呢，康巴呢，哈拉呢，俺的行吧呢，但这个刚来蒙古讲的用这个多，这个刚刚了点呢，俺那就对外语就基本用哎，就差多个多啊。 但这个我真的我这俺那那个接触还看没多啊，但这个我瞧看看那什么单位呢？当然深圳个这地真的我从西边团呢，俺那西边团呢，俺得了规则节，早起不节，晚起不节，俺得了，大家觉得得了，偏把主要什么单位，俺那偏把主要什么单位都可你把节什么都用过吧，是吧？俺那得了，大概差不多的全部这个都用这个吧。
And so that's, you know, to really extend that kind of motivation on these sentient beings who are greatly kind to us, so that we can get into the detail of that for all those who produce our food, for example, those who are helping to build our house, and those who clean, and the farmers and so on, and all of the effort that is put in to extend that thinking out beyond that, to see how we are part of a very complex, intricate system whereby all our needs are catered for. Now, our happiness is dependent upon all of these sentient beings, because we can't do much from our own side, just isolated by ourselves. And so this has to build up deeper appreciation of all sentient beings, of the kindness of sentient beings, of the importance of sentient beings, of how beneficial those sentient beings are. And when we can really, allow our kind of, how do you say, to fill our minds with that sense of how beneficial sentient beings are, then the thought of harming them or of being harmed by them is far more unlikely and distant.
What? You want to regret to that regret to be also. You want to regret to Sanja the Simjala Debe, Doja Tatu Tobata, Doja Tatu Toba Chicha, that Nigal Debe Sanja Toba Sumbe, Dole Miriba Hosa, Tambone Zawale, Deda Guja, Mambuche, Deda Punzo Paru Chich.
And so these two subheadings leading from establishing that point through reasoning, how through faith in both the Buddha and sentient beings will allow us to attain our ultimate object of desire. And the second is that, that the both being, through faith in both are alike in allowing us to attain enlightenment. Therefore, we should not drop one for the other. The second half of verse number 112 looks at that, where it says, for many who have pleased them have thereby reached perfection. So this is dealing with the first of these subheadings.
What is it? Longdeal to be because the Longdeal to check require Sanja the subject that Lasa, Sanja the subject that Niga Chiche, Deju, Kuba Chebe, Kibu Bushik Teta, Tuni, Puton Tobe, also Padu to Chimbechi, also Takaja, Rodakaja Casa, because of the Sanja the subject that Dene, Takaja. 지금 거소라 다 탐제 전부 된데 얘기가 다 기부 대다 대전 구바집에 기부 대조게 기부 먹고지 대다 되니 파주 침받지 안 대다 중요해서 좀 치료서 셔보자.
And so this then is the meaning behind the quote previously, in the reasoning backing that up, is that through faith in both the Buddha and sentient beings, and the appreciation following, that many beings have actually brought to completion the two excellent collections of merit and wisdom, and have done this many times in the past. So this is kind of proving it.
Sanje Gomba Tubala, the Casa de Debe, Chiba Casata, Casa de Deju Kuba Chebe, Deju Kuba Chebe, Deju Kuba Chebe, Yutsumba Yinde, Tsumba Yinde, Kibu Mambush, Deda, Deju Kuba, because Kibu Mambush, Deda, Chebe, Deni Puson Tobe Chirs, Tobe Paju the Chibe Chirs, that in this question to matter. What that is a conjecture. Rockers ordinary.
Yeah, so yes, so that this point then, this verse quote, this kind of like second part of that verse, Says, for many who have pleased them have thereby reached perfection, refers to that in terms of having faith in both the Buddhas and the sentient beings, in a similar sense, that they're being similarly worthy of that faith, and the ensuing appreciation of that has allowed for many beings to bring to completion, to perfect, in other words, the two excellent collections.
니가 대배 산제에서 단계 토바 충벌 돌레 미리과 직샤 직레 미리과네 자와레 셈제 남다 자와레 산제 초조 자와라 겔라 구제 대신도 셈제 라미지 주제.
And the second of those two points was again through faith in both. Then the Buddhas and they are both alike in facilitating the attainment of enlightenment, and therefore we should not drop one for the other. Verse number 113 states, "A Buddha's qualities are gained from the sentient beings and the conquerors alike. So why do I not respect them in the same way as I respect the conquerors?"
다 데레자 데라 셈제다 겨와레서 셈제다 겨와 산제레 저부 산제죠 콤바 주바 니가 집어 찾아 자와라 겨와를 구바체 겨와라 안 구바체 산제를 구바체 대치도 셈제라 구바 데네시 구바 미제바 데네 아니 지수 루 가서 지수루 인데스 미테베 데가 출루 가리고 출루래 안티 좀 제다가 조금 도와서 미테베 치고 시작하고.
And so this is saying that we are able to attain the qualities of enlightenment through relying on both sentient beings and the conquerors, and this is how we gain the results of enlightenment, and that they are similar in that sense. But then, why is it that we do not respect sentient beings in the same way as we respect the conquerors? You say, what kind of spiritual tradition is this? Because that is completely incorrect.
nga라zo letang bore so mayo with karuga semje namda jawala sanje chojo jawala gela kuje teche semje lami chi so samlotan wata kali sulu res what so samlotan this doing samlotan go what.
And so we have to kind of reflect in that way, when we see where the Buddhas are and where we are as beginners, and that we started out the same, but the Buddhas are in their kind of situation in enlightened beings, where we're still kind of really shackled by mental affliction. And look at the difference and ask, if we're paying respect to one and not the other, what kind of spiritual tradition is that?
어디를 고마시 다들 이면서 산제랑 뭐서 지가소래 지가 카도 다지라미 소소 메바잖아 산제 가반에 요때 이네 뭐서 제고도 다 심제서 다 소소 저나 대나 사나 다 가바이네 심제서 고도이네 유여버려도 봐 다들 들라 삽사제 맞으나 뺀니가 해도 봐 니가 해도 봐.
Of course, we understand that the Buddhas are, in all places at all times and all that. But when we are in this world, we realize that whatever we are doing, whether we are standing, sitting, moving about, even in our sleep, that sentient beings are there. They're all about as well. And that if we are not careful with our attitude and activities, there can be great danger of accumulating negativity.
야, 저 진바진에 삼로다나 고두이네 고급제도가 소소 수다 두마 삼로다나.
And of course, that if we're thinking correctly, on the other hand, from another point of view, that the prevalence of sentient beings in our lives is all a great opportunity for us, and we can see it in that positive sense.
That is then is was ran change the shukchungda tang shen change the jacheda cheda tane and gugab simjela and simjela pemba to samlota and pemba truk to bade kayula you truk to bache matu batikada new to truk to bache molom sunja japchena ta che the gets boredwa.
And of course, therefore, we need to really, first of all, reflect on the debilitating effects of the self-cherishing attitude, and the beneficial effects of cherishing others, and reduce the former and increase the latter in our thinking, and so that therefore we can take every opportunity to be of benefit to sentient beings and seize that opportunity as much as we can. And so we can leave it there for today. So once again, to reflect on the visualization of the Buddha in the space in front.
아니 년종 좀 공부해 감성 좋아지도 가와께와네 아니 동네에 라실에 메대와 인자 아니 된데 예와 좀 년종 좀 아니 된데 년종게 예별 로데 이게 밤지라 줘서 섬제 밤데 아니 랑게 지와 이거 밤지 줘서 밤데 아니 요소 지와래 아니 가서데 담아담아게 맞을래 줘 어디에 줘서 아니 섬제 탐제가도 산제 공부 뭐라카다我这他感觉我的那个帮助就是，俺这呢，其他个去肯定是把语言的做吧，对上要么是扩大做吧，公办学，在那个大家搞上的了，落到下，俺的来，俺告诉的，落的，俺告诉的，但告诉的，一个告诉的，红旗就说啥子，红要素就完了，俺告诉的，你们就把人家告诉就说是，那甚至他对的因为因啥？다 산제 고마서 또 그때네 중앙 임바 인사 어디 공부 딜라 때네甚至他这个산제 고마 맞죠他们都요한이도 두가 지금 고마셔 뒤 아니 이게 아까 보죠 아 용서 줘 발래 아니 다외 좀 뭐냐 가서 줘서 선택을 고마죠.
And so then through our reflecting on the Buddha in front and our seeking to generate a suitable seating arrangement on our own crown, we reflect on renunciation and how cyclic existence is in the nature of suffering and how we want to gain definite emergence from that suffering. We visualize the syllable BAM, from which arises the lotus mandala seat on our crown. And then through reflecting on the fact that all inner and outer phenomena lack any objective existence, even at the atomical level, they're merely imputed. And we reflect on just that mere absence of the object of negation that then transforms into the syllable hung, and from that hung then emerges the sun disk mandala seat on our crown. And then through the fact of the lack of any independent existence, we conclude that phenomena then arise therefore independence. This opens up the whole cause and effect scenario. And so the idea of being able to accumulate the causes that lead to the result of enlightenment becomes possible. And so we generate that mind of enlightenment, wishing to attain that state of enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings. And this becomes the white A syllable, and that transforms into the moon mandala seat on our crown. Then we utter the invocation verse thrice. O glorious and precious root Guru, come take your lotus and moon seat placed here on my crown. Keep me safe in your kindness. Bestow on me the attainments of body, speech, and mind. And so at the end of the first recitation, the figure moves from the space in front. At the end of the second, they have arrived at our pre-prepared seat. And at the end of the third, we have the certainty that the Buddha will remain until we ourselves attain enlightenment. Then we make the offering of the 7 limbs of practice and the mandala offering.
감성을 좋아해도 가밖에와 이번에야 동해도 교회에 저와 두제가 동해를 맞아버리셔. 다 딜레 대화 좀 맞는데 대화 천년 상황에서 남의 영화민도선 보다 딜레 예바 좀严重고 아니 된데게 예별로데 아니 랑닝디 거소래 가서데 이게 밤제를 교소서 밤 용서 주발에 아니 가서래 때마다 맞아 받을 교소 섬사체 아니 심지어 탐색도 산재 고만요或者 당간제 지나가 조건의 유된 두고 뒤에서 뭐扩大줘 공부시 어디 가자가자 로토샤 근데 아니 요소 주발에 이게 홍 요소 주발에 님의 정원냐 가서 줘서 진짜 다들 좀 전에 이봐 인자 다 산재 공부서 줘도 곧 때내 중앙 인바 좀 생각되네 워낙 규정 소소로 거 용어요 그래 그래서 심지어 탐색도 산재 공부 용관이도 맞아 타면도 토바지게 있어 공부제 뒤에는 이게 아까 보죠 아 요소 주발에 아니 다 이게 뭐냐 가서 줘서 섭섭자
And once again, then we reflect on suffering in cyclic existence and how, we have the suffering of suffering and the suffering of change and the pervasive suffering, and knowing that, in our without our being able to attain liberation from cyclic existence, there can be no fully qualified happiness. And this produces the desire for to renounce cyclic existence and to attain liberation. And this produces this syllable ham on our heart center, and this transforms into the lotus mandala seat. And then reflecting on how all inner and outer phenomena lack any independent existence, even at the atomical level. We reach the point of meditation where we're merely observing the mere absence of the object of negation. This then becomes the syllable hung at our heart center, and this transforms into the sun mandala disc. This lack of independent existence, we resolve then leads to the way in which phenomena are established is independence on other causes and conditions, etc., which validates the path from to attain the state of enlightenment in order to benefit sentient beings. And this a mind of enlightenment is represented by the white A syllable, and this transforms into the moon mandala seat.
네, 반대서 라마를 다른 인가별에서 그래 구속도 좀 그래서 수대전에 답을 가서 배 니베 가서 수배 때는 산재 고마마도 저소소 안되는 님배마다 이제 가서 남진인 내자는 진짜 제가도 도저히 가고 생각을 가지 뒤 타고도 되배송아 다야다 엄무니무니 마음에서 리바송 거 내가 주지 잠에 가서 엄 알아봐서 나한테 내가 때내 가서 엄 이해다마 이걸 뭐 샤만하게 소 리바송 거 그래서 공부해.
And then the invocation verse again, "O glorious and precious root guru, come take your lotus and moon seat placed here on my heart. Keep me safe in your kindness, bestow on me the attainments of body, speech, and mind." At the end of the first recitation, the figure moves down into the central channel. At the end of the second, they have arrived at our pre-prepared seat at the heart. And at the end of the third recitation, we have again that beautiful certainty that the Buddha will remain with us until we attain the state of enlightenment. And then the petals of the lotus fold over and are sealed at their tips by a white 5-pronged vajra. And this then is surrounded by 3 mantras: the name mantra of Shakyamuni Buddha in a clockwise direction, the mantra of Manjushri in an anti-clockwise direction, and a mantra of the pendant arising in a clockwise direction.
어디는 다들 랑게 니고 요소 라마 투에 온 것이와디 안 구송토래 외세 빠도면 랑게 집어네 간디가 바로 외세 저는 외세기 잡 네는 토마메본다 간제다 지금 디바지와 맞아 아니 라도도 다 간제 지금 소주와 맞아 미사 수행 참아서 주연 참아서 나제 낙선에서 로다라서 다 간제 제배 하나마도 라제 하나 내가 간제 싸워 있는 마 다소 삼서 다간에 지금 로다 체다 생각과 토마메스 디바도 마 다소사 다간에 아니 소다가 도마도 자주서 말라마다 상하다 파다 말라마고바다 러버다 마고바서 소바 다간제 저 토레 탑에 겨서 저 화다 예수는 예다 간제저 싸워 이번에 예동 그래 싸워 봐 장시다 다간에 저거 류게 나자 생고 동에 그래서 시와 제소 삼사지 아니 자롱 틸레卷되게도 맞아 아니 다티기 뉴도 산제 고마타와라 교연 지슈데 가서 탐에가 나죠 교연 탄제 당네 간나 탄제 다과란 잡아지 차도가 야고시 중소 고마시.
And so then from within the lotus petals, the Guru Buddha sends out countless rays of light from body, speech, and mind, which permeate through every cell of my body, from the crown of the head to the soles of the feet, and thereby purifying all the negativities and obscurations since beginning this time in general, and such as the negativities of the 10 non-virtues of killing, stealing, and sexual misconduct related to physical non-virtues, through lying, stealing, harsh speech, and divisive speech, and idle gossip in terms of verbal non-virtues, and in purifying malicious intent, covetousness, and wrong view related to mental non-virtues. It purified also all of the naturally occurring negativities and all actions prescribed by the Buddha. All the negativities I've accumulated in this life and the one previous to this and previous to that, going back to beginningless time, all infractions and downfalls related to pratimoksha vows, bodhisattva vows, and tantric vows. All the negativities related to any disrespect I have shown, from my parents up to my gurus, all of the faults related to the negativities relating to any physical illness, disease, or discomfort, or mental disease and discomfort that can act as great obstacles to my being able to perfectly practice the Dharma. And that all of the imbalances related to channels, winds, and drops, and the elements within the body, that they are all purified and rectified and pliant. And in particular, due to the greatest obstacle to my being able to generate or attain the state of enlightenment quickly, being ordinary view, this is now put aside, and I are able to take up a pure view. And so then, through the combination of my own most subtle wind acting as the substantial cause, together with the body of the Buddha acting as the cooperative conditions, my own body is transformed into the enlightened body of a Buddha. And then through the combination of my own most subtle mind acting as the substantial cause, together with the mind of the Buddha acting as the cooperative conditions, my own mind is transformed into the enlightened mind of a Buddha. And thus I see my own body, speech, and mind now as inseparable from the body, speech, and mind of an enlightened being. And this brings forth a sense of a bliss which combines with voidness, and I abide in the wisdom of non-dual bliss and voidness. Likewise, the place that I find myself in, all the faults are now completely purified, and it transforms into the enlightened abode of an enlightened being.
And Kamsung Simja Deda Tamjala, Lama Shajas, Chasawari, Shubala, Deda Lama Shajas, Kuzuto Yoko, Yemejusa, Deda Nasaga, Deda Lama Shajas, Tabish and the Jusu, Kumacha.
And then seeing myself as a fully enlightened being, and also not existing in the way that I appear, I send out countless rays of light equal in number to all the beings in all the three realms of existence. And upon dissolving into them, they spontaneously arise as fully enlightened beings. And the places that they are in are purified of all fault and are transformed into the palatial abode of an enlightened being. And this being able to kind of like see how all sentient beings have been led to the state of enlightenment like this is, of course, the fulfillment of the main goal. And this brings forth a tremendous sense of joy.
다 심제 탐자 산지가 살고 봐 뒤쳐도 수의 개와 가지고 대중은 소소의 저거 유의되는 좀 뒤서 요만에 공부시 아니 뒤 공부시네 아니 뒤 대화대 예별로 되게 동바체네 대돈 있으면 시켜서 공부하자.
This leading all the sentient beings to the state of enlightenment, the virtue that has facilitated that, myself as the agent of that virtue, all completely lack any objective existence and are merely imputed by thought. This brings forth a sense of bliss, which then transforms into voidness, and I abide in the wisdom of non-dual bliss and voidness.
다 단다도 뭐가 이제를 운에 대다 내려오시다 요말와 이래서 뭐가 이제 거는 삼로 땅와 이래서 단다 삼로 땅 왔는 신체는 운에 거라 타입에 맞게 심제 탐제 아니 배 가서 산지 살아 아니 되는지 거투와요 거투에 줄을 주고서 뭐하지.
Of course, this is happening at the level of imagination here. Nothing is as easy as that, and yet I do take this moment to dedicate with absolute sincerity that I will do whatever I possibly can to lead all sentient beings in this way to that state of enlightenment and make sure that it happens as quickly as possible.
근데 이번 인사 다 소속에 근데 영화라 소속 산재 고마도 탑도 근데 탑 고발라 도발라 장주에서 돈이 더 베셔라 냠내 지고도 근데 이번 인사 다 가르치고도 소속 사나 존나 대나 녀나 다 가지 기부주나 두부주나 지 경과잖아 나사 주나 아니 타마 시바이네 디 장주에서 돈이 더 베셔라 깨도 교토 받치겠지 튕겨도 줘도 받지 맞아 타면 돼 줘도 받치기 인서 어디서 뭐하지 어디 제도에 거들 배주체 어디서.
And so since it's an obligation, since there's no choice but to attain enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings, I must therefore perfect the mind of enlightenment itself and the wisdom realizing emptiness. And that means I am able to insert that into every action that I do, regardless of what the circumstances are. So whether it's a happy situation or a non-happy situation, whether I'm well or sick or old or at the verge of death, it doesn't really matter. That in every situation I am in, I am going to make sure that every motivation that I have is imbued with the mind of enlightenment and the wisdom realizing emptiness, and to be able to lay down those causes to attain enlightenment as quickly as possible.
어떻게 제도나 아니 소소 미지데 meaningful 잡아라 meaningful에 르바 방법 쉽지요나 다 같이 좀 레벨 잡아라 어디를.
And that, of course, that if we are able to do that, we are making this life meaningful. And I'm aware that there are many different levels of what that meaningful can mean. But if we're able to lead a life with this kind of motivation, then this is the top level of meaningfulness we can make.
Cheria
Teme
Sewa
se
Tenzin
gong
Jago
tenzin
Shabe
Shape
Sike
si
Pado
te badu tengyo.
Yeoi Meoi Meoi Tseoi
We
Yeoi Cheria
You are Avalokiteshvara, a great treasure of compassion, not aimed at true existence, and Manjushri, master of flawless wisdom, as well as Vajrapani, destroyer of hordes of demons without exception. Sankapa, crown jewel of the sages of the land of snows, Losang Rakpa, at your feet, I make request.
That's all. No, touch it. Thank you, everyone.
So, again, koso duntrak
you.
ni jela,
Yeah.
Thank you, Noel.
koso di tinda dumba direct ni barerwa,
What it?
and dela koso di na koso cham jogidu.
Hola,
And
hola. Nada.
koso giagur che tupki marwa.
Nada.
So ane koso
Curing
David la email dangi and
Nada. Curing.
re di ane duntrak ni